To episode 2 of our Global Challenge analysis for the Regulation G Global Challenge 1. The Global Challenge 2 is coming up soon, and I have been going over this team because I'm using a similar version for the Global Challenge 2, so we're just doing a quick recap of my games and seeing how we can plan and prep better for the upcoming Global Challenge. This is episode 2, so episode 1 will be linked in the description. The playlist will have all 5 episodes of my 45 battles for the Global Challenge, so you can see how I did. You can see here we're up against a Koraidon team with Screamtail, Qianpao, support, which is very hard for Terapagos because I can't freely set up combines in the face of an Encore disable. We can see that the Koraidon set the sun, Screamtail's speed was activated. We can safely go for a fake out because most teams do not consider the fake out on the Grimmsnarl, and I'm not worried about getting immediately encored. I switch in my Landorus to confirm whether or not the Koraidon is clear amulet because some of them haven't been going recently, but this one, however, is, and they just fire off a Dazzling Gleam, trying to break my Shadow Shield and get some damage into my Terapagos. So I go ahead and Parting Shot out into the Screamtail, knowing that it will likely try to encore or disable my Grimmsnarl this turn. The Parting Shot goes off. I get to bring in my Cresselia and go for a big Earthquake. Notably, Koraidon is the hardest matchup for Terapagos teams, in my opinion. And so these two Pokemon that you see on the field are the ones that will be most effective in helping me. The Moonblast threatens Koraidon pre-Terra, and the Earthquake threatens post-Terra. However, we saw that the Screamtail still outspeeds my Scarf Landorus with the Photosynthesis boost, so I am in danger of a disable here. So I have to think about that. I go for an ally switch and Earthquake, knowing that they would probably want to disable my Landorus, assuming I was Choice Scarf. However, they do swap out the Screamtail into a Moongus, but they do, however, terrastalize their Koraidon. Having protected last turn, they're in danger of a Moonblast this turn, and thinking that I might be scared of the disable play, they, call my bluff. However, my ally switch allows me to just knock them out with a critical hit Earthquake into Koraidon. So things are looking really good for me. The Terra was used in the threat of a Cresselia Moonblast. Amoonguss is in, but again, Screamtail here can try to encore disable me on either of my Pokemon. However, I am feeling pretty good about the situation, having burned my opponent's restricted and them having 2 support Pokemon on the field. My Cresselia helps me in the face if I fall asleep at all. And I'd have a full Terapagos in the back. So I go ahead and swap it in, not wanting to get disabled into my Landorus, and I just double switch to get Fake Out on the board, to get Calm Mind on the board. I feel like they would most likely forfeit this turn, but they'll play it out. They go for the encore into my ally switch Cresselia most likely, and they spore my Landorus slot. Again, it's not the end of the world. They have 0 offensive pressure on this board. I go for a Calm Mind. I go for a Parting Shot into the Amoonguss to just bring in my Cresselia and wake myself up with Lunar Blessing. It is worth noting that I am guaranteed to sleep this turn, so it doesn't matter what I go for. They just go for Dazzling Gleam for some damage to break my Terra Shell. Terapagos is asleep, and they likely go for a Spore, but they go for a Pollen Puff, side Pollen Puff into the Screamtail, keeping themselves healthy. So not wanting to go down easily, I go for a Flamethrower into the Amoonguss just to get some big super effective damage. The Lunar Blessing will wake me up. Notably, my Cresselia is faster than my Terapagos for this exact interaction. However, they do switch out their Amoonguss into Entei, so this Flamethrower will not be doing much damage. They Thunder Wave my Cresselia, so I won't be moving before my Terapagos. Good to know. But I do wake up, fortunately, just a 1-turn sleep, but the Flamethrower does near nothing. The Lunar Blessing, however, does cure my paralysis and reinstate my Terra Shell. At this point, I think I should probably just be going for damage in the face of the Screamtail. Again, it's not really threatening any damage. And also, if they ever knock out one of my Pokemon, my Choice Scarf Landorus can just come in and click Earthquake a couple times. Now that they've lost their Photosynthesis, I can outspeed them. So I just go for a Terra Starstorm and a Lunar Blessing, assuming that they're just going to keep trying to break my Terra Shell, you know, and deal some damage. They go for a Snarl. Cresselia dodges. Terapagos, it hits. However, because of my Covert Cloak, the Snarl damage does not lower my special attack. I noticed in preparation for this tournament that a lot of people's answers into Terapagos, because the primary set is Leftover Substitute, is to snarl them down. So the Covert Cloak puts in a lot of work preventing fake outs, preventing snarls, and in best of one closed team sheet, which is the format of this tournament, it comes in clutch. I go for an ally switch to just, you know, play the Encore, disable Mind Games. I didn't want to get my Terra Starstorm disabled that turn. They just Encored it this turn. So I Lunar Blessing. I'm forcing them to deal some damage to me. Again, I'm not really concerned if any of my Pokemon ever go down. They Encore my Cresselia into ally switch and Sacred Fire the Cresselia, get some chip damage, get some burns. But again, I'm just letting my Landorus come in at a safe opportunity to just Earthquake things down, which is why I'm targeting down that Screamtail to put it in range of Earthquake, because Entei is in range. So I, you know, whatever I do, just can't swap in my Landorus for free and risk a Sacred Fire burn is the way I see it. They bring in their Amoonguss. And again, even better, if I can chip down that Amoonguss to put it in Earthquake range, that is great at this point. They do get a Sacred Fire burn on my Grimmsnarl swap. Again, if that had been my Landorus, that could have been devastating. Grimmsnarl's hurt by the burn. My Encore ends. I can Parting Shot the Entei, because Inner Focus only prevents Intimidate stat drops, but it does not prevent stat drops in other ways. So they do go for an extreme speed. They get hit by my Rocky Helmet. They take out my Grimmsnarl, but, you know, a little chip damage is fine. I just go for a Calm Mind. And it is worth noting, on this iteration of the team, I have a Ground Terra Landorus for big Ground Terra Earthquakes. That isn't what I am using moving forward, because I found that I never used it. But seeing how I'm not utilizing my Terra on my Terapagos, as I'm clicking it here to get a big flamethrower into Amoonguss, I might have been playing toward a Ground Terra Earthquake endgame here initially, but now I realize everything's an Earthquake range if I get this Amoonguss off the board. If they swap it into Screamtail at this point, it's in range of this +1 flamethrower. I go for a Sacred Fire. I go for a Lunar Blessing, keeping myself healthy, healing the burn on my Cresselia. And that Amoonguss should go down to the +1 flamethrower at this point. We've taken their ability to Pollen Puff off the table. Again, we just don't want Entei to have any way to live. Their Screamtail comes in. I can safely just go for Lunar Blessing, Terra Starstorm. Again, they could try to Encore disable me, but I've revealed Ally Switch a couple times, and at this point, they recognize that the game is over. So let's update our score and get on to the next battle. All right, getting into game 2, we're up against a Zacian Regidrago team. These teams are also very hard for my squad. Zacian is pretty strong, and a Choice Scarf Timid Regidrago can make things difficult for me, as we saw in episode 1. So luckily, I have Intimidate with Landorus, and it has a naturally good matchup into Zacian, and if I can Parting Shot or Reflect at an opportune time to Intimidate at the same time, then things can go well. However, they do have Farigiraf to prevent priority. You can see I want that Intimidate and that Parting Shot pressure right away if I can get it. Maybe a little greedy. One thing about this team is right now, you can see my record is 4-2 at the bottom, and these are the only 6 games I've played with the team at this point. Since then, I have played over 200 games, but here I'm working on the fly. They lead Tornadus Urshifu, trying to just get as much, pressure onto a potential Terrapagos lead. Fake out Grimmsnarl again in the lead, very powerful in best of 1 on my team. I do just go for a Rock Tomb on the Tornadus. We see no speed drop, confirming that it is in fact Covert Cloak. And here they're threatening a Surging Strikes into my Landorus, which is what I'm most worried about. I do have a Terrapagos with a Terra Shell switch in. I do have a Sinistcha switch in to resist a Surging Strikes. Parting Shot and Intimidating the Urshifu means that they can't go for big close combats into my Terrapagos. I come into here assuming that they won't want to go for a close combat into my Urshifu. They go for a Rain Dance, and I Parting Shot them, but at this point I'm thinking definitely a Surging Strikes is coming into one of my slots. So Sinistcha would be the safe play in case they try to target down my Grimmsnarl, anticipating the Landorus to switch out. They do, however, just go for the Surging Strikes into my Landorus slot. Terra Shell lets all 3 of these hits be resisted, but in the rain, critical hits still do a decent chunk of damage. And I still haven't activated my eject button. The position honestly isn't great for me. The Landorus Grimmsnarl lead really didn't work into the Urshifu Tornadus, and spoiler alert, that's not a very good lead for my team given the data that I've collected since then. So the good news is I have done a lot of damage I've stopped the Urshifu's close combats from doing a ton of damage. However, I haven't stopped many of the other things. I'm trying to catch a good close combat here, bringing in the Intimidate, maybe because no matter what I do here, the Sinistcha can't get a safe Rage Powder. My opponent doesn't know that because they could Bleak Wind, activate my eject button, and then safely close combat me. So, again, they have done well to keep the pressure on. The Sinistcha will activate my eject button here, so I've taken a lot of damage just trying to pivot around, getting myself in a position where I won't just automatically lose. I assume they're going for a Surging Strikes into my Grimmsnarl here. I want them to just take some damage from the Rocky Helmet. They will take only 2 hits because of the rain being up, which is unfortunate. My Grimmsnarl spread during these battles was very heavily defensive. But I do get the opportunity to bring in my Sinistcha, and I can go for a Rage Powder now. Unfortunately, this time another Bleak Wind Storm will KO me. So I really am just hoping that this Terra Starstorm can start putting me into a good place. And I just go for a Life Steal in case they do go for the Bleak Wind Close Combat and don't double up. Potentially because I'm using my Terastallization, I will be taking away the rain from the field this turn. Terrapagos's Terraform 0 takes away all field effects. They do go for the Detect into Urshifu and just taunt my Sinistcha, so I can't go for Rage Powder next turn. The Terra Starstorm does not take, or it should not take down the Tornadus from this point, depending on how they're trained, but we can hope it does not. And I did just go for a Matcha Gotcha. Maybe this can knock out the Tornadus. It does not connect, so we will never know. So again, I've Intimidated. I've Parting Shotted. Their best opportunity is to just go for a Surging Strikes. They do use their Terastallization. We'll see if they're Stellar or Water. It is Water, so they find the correct play. Going for a Rain Dance and a Surging Strikes will do the most damage on this turn possible before they lose their Urshifu. It won't knock me out, but it will put me dangerously low. And assuming they have any Pokemon in the back, it should be easily enough for me to lose this game at this point. But we're not out of the woods yet. You know, we still have our Pokemon. We've eliminated their speed control. Maybe we can make something happen. We're still taunted, so we can't redirect with Rage Powder, which might be nice if they have 2 single-target Pokemon. We see the Zacian and the Ogerpon, which are 2 single-target Pokemon, but the Ogerpon's grass typing does allow it to get around that. Hopefully, Landorus could help us live some moves. Fortunately, Sinistcha is a little protected in the rain from this Ogerpon. Trying to figure out my best course of action. We just protect Terapagos and swap in our Intimidate. I'm thinking maybe if I can Intimidate, heal myself up with Hospitality, cycle that around a little bit, we could be in an interesting end game where Landorus potentially could do well, but they do just go straight into my Landorus with that Behemoth Blade, doing a ton of damage. They have Follow Me redirection if needed. I swap in my Sinistcha to keep my Landorus alive from one more Behemoth Blade and go for a Stomping Tantrum into the Zacian, trying to take that off the board. Obviously, that's the biggest threat on the field, being at just regular attack with the Intimidate. So Hospitality heals me up a little bit, should allow me to just barely live a Behemoth Blade, so I'm, doing whatever I can to stay in this game. I live on 9 HP, and they do go for a Wood Hammer into the Sinistcha, so I am still alive, but not a lot of resources remaining. I anticipate that the Zacian will be going for a Protect this turn, or the Ogerpon will be going for a Follow Me, so I do swap out my Landorus and just Life Dew. Hoping that maybe I can finish this game up with just Earthquake in the back. They do Wood Hammer my Landorus, Terapagos swap in. And I'm just, again, because I can't redirect an Ogerpon move, them attacking into my Landorus slot is always safe. A Rage Powder here, if I could take away the Ogerpon's redirection, might be great. I could Rage Powder Earthquake. They would knock out my Sinistcha. So I'm just kind of hoping for a big critical hit on the Ogerpon. Or that with Earthquake and some Macha-Gotcha damage, potentially, I could knock out the Ogerpon. But Grass and Fire typing can resist Grass 4 times. So it's not the greatest game plan, but it might be the only game plan I have. You do see me go for the Earthquake to deal damage to both of my opponent's Pokemon. It puts the Ogerpon low, but again, if they target down my Landorus here, they take barely any recoil. We throw off a Macha-Gotcha. We'll see how much this does. Maybe in the rain, we can survive a Fire-type Ivy Cudgel and get a critical hit. But the rain stops just in time for that dream to not be alive. So they do go for the Ivy Cudgel. That should be enough to take out my Sinistcha. And we lose. We'll update our rating, and we'll get into the next game. Boom. And now the third game of the episode, we're up against another Koraidon team. Again, one of the things that I was really trying to avoid in the Global Challenge, really trying to target down Calyrex-Ice, Calyrex-Shadow, and Kyogre teams, which I thought would be the most used. So I'm obviously not feeling great about this matchup, trying to figure things out on the fly. Again, now I have a game plan into these that doesn't automatically lose me the game. It is Okie Dokie Landorus lead. We'll see. Did I figure that out in the moment? I am saying, okay, Okie Dokie into any Chi-Yu Flutter stuff could be really good. A Landorus might put on a lot of pressure, making them respect the Choice Scarf. I do bring Cresselia and Terapagos in the back. This is the game plan that I have since developed into this type of team. We'll see if it pays off for me here. Basically, the Okie Dokie with an Assault Vest threatens a lot of damage onto either Chi-Yu or Flutter Mane. Landorus threatens a lot of damage into Chi-Yu, threatening a Terrestrialization or a double commit into the Landorus, keeping my Okie Dokie completely safe. They do lead. Koraidon, Fluttermane, we'll see, are they Clear Amulet? Yes, they are Clear Amulet, as most were at this point. However, again, some of them opting not to use them, so it's always smart to lead the Landorus, I think, because it can catch them if they were greedy in their team building. Also, the Landorus threatens a lot of offensive pressure, which really, I think, makes my opponents want to go for a double up into the Landorus slot, which does keep my Okidogi safe. We go straight for a gunk shot into the Fluttermane. I've since taken high horsepower off of my Okidogi set, changed my Terra to Steel to resist flying and psychic moves. Again, on a Terrapagos team, you typically Terra your Terrapagos. So the use cases are few and far between, and Steel was the best one, and I've put Hard Press in that slot. Gunk Shot has shaky accuracy and KOs most Fluttermane. They do just go for the Icy Wind Flare Blitz into the Landorus, as we've baited. However, they do get the burn, which might take us out at the end of this turn. But the Gunk Shot does land into the Fluttermane. It does knock out. This was my anticipated game plan at the time. However, a lot of Fluttermanes are a little bulkier moving forward, and so the hard pressed gives me a little more assurance in that matchup with higher accuracy and higher damage. However, in this matchup, we are fortunate enough that the Gunk Shot connects and knocks out the Fluttermane. We do still have a sliver of health on our Cresselia, meaning that we can go for some shenanigans here. We go for a Drain Punch into the Ogerpon, and we go for that big ally switch, trying to bait the Koraidon move into this slot, because I assume they know that my Okidogi is the biggest threat at this point and that they'll want to take it out. Their Koraidon should be outspeeding their Ogerpon, and they've committed their Terrestrialization, meaning if they don't go for a Flame Charge, my Landorus will outspeed and threaten a one-hit KO with a big ground move. They do go for a Follow Me, and they do go for a Flame Charge into my Cresselia, trying to take it off the board, which, you know, maybe they called my ally switch. But man, it, you know, could have been worse, but could have been better. Now they've still got a Koraidon that is faster than my Landorus and can threaten probably a one-hit knockout with an unintimidated Fire Terra Flare Blitz in the sun. So I do go for the high horsepower into Koraidon, trying to take this off the field, hoping that I can live, or that the threat of one of these Pokemon knocking it out, like, they can only target one of my guys, they can't knock out both, so I double the slot just to ensure that it will go down. And they do go for the big old Flare Blitz into my Landorus, taking it out, but also taking a lot of recoil. If this high horsepower hits, we will both be down to our last two Pokemon. However, high horsepower is trash, and it doesn't connect. Really unfortunate for me. Having it down to the last two Pokemon might be nice. However, I do have this play to protect and just go for high horsepower into the Koraidon. I believe they will likely try to either Flare Blitz my Okidogi and go down to their own recoil, which is good, and then try to break my Terra Shell with Ogerpon. And I'm hoping, you know, maybe my Okidogi is bulky enough. They do go for a Protect, just trying to break my Terra Shell. So it is a null turn. We kind of called it correctly. But now we are not really in a lot of danger, because they either have to, because their Koraidon outspeeds their Ogerpon, they can't threaten a knockout into me with Collision Course. A little weird that okay, I was like, you definitely shouldn't Terra here. It should always be a double up into the Koraidon, because if they follow me, the Okidogi will knock out the Ogerpon. And then the Terapagos will knock out the Koraidon. Yeah. So this is always a double up. They doubled up into my Terapagos, but because of my Terra Shell saving me from the super effective fighting damage, I don't go down this turn. I do knock out the Koraidon with my Terapagos. And I forgot, my Okidogi has its speed fallen, so it's not faster than my Terapagos at this point. And it is Qianpao in the back. So say what you will, maybe we got bailed out based on their speed interactions by missing that high horsepower earlier. Now we can just go for the Terastallization to keep ourselves alive. We can safely go for a Drain Punch for big super effective damage into the Qianpao. They haven't, or they already used their Terastallization on their Koraidon. So it's looking like we're going to win our hardest matchup. And that is how I this is probably the first game where I was like, okay, it's not an automatic loss. We do have an opportunity to win. They even get a critical hit Ice Spinner into my Okidogi, which was their best opportunity to stay alive, but my Drain Punches keeping me healthy has been clutch. And Okidogi did exactly what it needed to do by missing that high horsepower. So hindsight's 2020. We love it. We'll update the score, move on to the next game. All right, moving on to our next battle. We've got a Calyrex Dondozo Weezing team. Notably, this doesn't have the Psychic Terrain user Indeedee for Expanding Force, but does notably have Urshifu and Gallade, or not Gallade, the future Gallade, Iron Valiant. Worth noting that a lot of these teams try to use, if they lead Weezing plus a fighting type or Weezing Calyrex, they might be a Terra fighting Calyrex, and they are threatening just to knock me out through my Terra Shell because the Weezing turns off that ability. So they lead both of their fighting types, saying, get out of here. Get out of here, Terapagos. So on these Urshifu leads, I have determined that the best play is to fake out the partner. So you can see a little bit of a mess up here going for the fake out into the Urshifu, because either they're going for a Surging Strikes into my Grimmsnarl and taking a lot of Rocky Helmet chip damage, or they're going for a double up into my Terapagos and went for a close combat, in which case my Terra Starstorm will take them down to their Focus Sash if they're Sash. If they're not, it will just knock them out. So a bit of a misplay, I would say, here, going for the fake out into the Urshifu. Even worse, they went for the Detect, so I don't get any damage into the Urshifu. Fake out into the Iron Valiant, 100% the correct play. Again, I've played a lot of battles since these. This is my 9th battle with the team at the moment, so not playing perfectly. And this is why we're doing this battle analysis, to prepare ourselves for the next global challenge. So when we see these types of leads, we will adjust accordingly. They switch out their Iron Valiant, potentially a mistake, because they bring in Weezing, stopping a parting shot from us, and stopping a potential hospitality healing. We bring in our Landorus. They do close combat straight into that slot, so we got that correct. They take some Life Orb damage. So now I'm thinking, okay, Life Orb with less defenses, they might go down to my Landorus at this point. We are Choice Scarf, and we do get a Reflect Up. I do go for a parting shot into the Urshifu. We are threatening super effective damage on the Weezing if needed. I'm trying to decide if using an Earthquake is worth going for, because it might KO both the Urshifu and the Weezing. However, the Urshifu, despite being Life Orb and having its defenses dropped, is quite bulky, as is the Weezing with a lot of defense. We do have a Reflect Up. They take some damage to Life Orb, and we foul play the Urshifu, doubling that slot just in case they hung on. And they taunt my Grimmsnarl. So not the end of the world. We already got our Reflect Up. They have turned off our Prankster. There isn't much we can be doing with our ability at this point. They do, however, still have Iron Valiant. ready to deal some Aura Sphere damage like we saw before. So I go for a Foul Play just to chip it down a little bit, try to put it in range of a Terra Starstorm. Foul Play won't do much because as a fighting fairy type, it is quadruple resisted. But again, I just want to deal whatever damage I can at this point. We want to get our Hospitality and Rage Powder in. They do Aura Sphere. We get a Foul Play. It does next to nothing. And they taunt my Terrapagos. Or try to double taunt the switch in for my Rage Powder. You can see me misclick the potential forfeit button. I'm not out of it, but it is getting tricky. So I do Foul Play. And I do... Okay, so actually I do bring in my Sinistcha, trying to activate a potential eject button to get the Wheezing off the field and heal myself up a little bit. Sinistcha comes in to tank an Aura Sphere. They do protect Wheezing. We do see that our Grimmsnarl on the last turn is faster than the Wheezing. So that is another reason why I made this play, so that now I can Parting Shot when the taunt ends before they can move. And here I'm thinking about maybe getting a Trick Room up is my best course of action. But I have seen taunt from that Wheezing multiple times, so it is risky to try to get up a Trick Room. So I do likely just go for double damage here, trying to whittle down that Iron Valiant. They go for just an Aura Sphere into my Grimmsnarl. We do get a burn and some valuable chip damage. If we get everything in range of the Terrapagos, they do taunt our Sinistcha, so good thing we didn't go for the Trick Room last turn. We still aren't safe from any Rage Powders. Our Reflect wears off, however, their physical attacking Pokemon are gone at this point. If the Iron Valiant carried close combat, we would have seen that by now, but they have Aura Sphere. And this Valiant might be getting in range of Machagachas, and if they're Calyrex in the back, they don't have a great way to hit our Terrapagos at this point. So we are seeing our win con. Might have been better to just stay in there with Sinistcha, if I'm being real. However, we'll see how this turn plays out. Maybe I was making a very aggressive read here. They go for Terra Fighting. Terra Fighting, likely not going into the Sinistcha slot. Okay, this was a good play. Past me was very smart. I was like, okay, they're not going to use a fighting move into my Sinistcha. So I can swap out my Sinistcha for Terrapagos, bring it back in, untaunted, and now I can Rage Powder in the face of these two Pokemon because I am not taunted yet. I don't think that Pokemon has Protect on it. I'm trying to decide to Terrastalize or not because I think, okay, the Rage Powder, Terra Starstorm is obvious. If they have Wide Guard, this is the turn to do it. So I don't Terrastalize. And I know that my Grimmsnarl was faster than this Wheezing, which means my Terrapagos cleanly outspeeds it. Wheezing is not known for its special defense. I'm Icy Wind dropped, oh no, but I'm not because my Covert Cloak comes in clutch, allowing me to continue to Rage Powder in the face of the Iron Valiant if needed. The Hospitality keeps me safe. And we are now in the position to where, okay, they could Astral Barrage and KO my Sinistcha. And Aura Sphere do damage to my Terrapagos. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe this isn't the game to go for Terrastalization on my Terrapagos. It's the game to use it on my Sinistcha. So I protect my Terrapagos, anticipating the Astral Barrage and then the Aura Sphere into my Terrapagos. But you'll see they just go for a Specs Psychic into my Sinistcha. It has to be specs to do that much damage, and they are able to knock me out. Now you'll see in the future iteration of my team, my Terra on my Sinistcha is dark, and it is specifically for this matchup. This is the game that influenced it. Among some other games, I have been Prankster Encored by a Whimsicott. I have been Psychicked. I have been Astral Barraged in positions very similar to those where I need to get up Trick Room as my win condition. So a Dark Terrestrialization to avoid Prankster, Encore, Prankster Taunt, resist Astral Barrage, and be immune to Psychics is the correct Terra for this team. We learn the hard way. We go down a game. We'll update our rating, and we'll get into the last battle of the episode. All right, our last game of the day, we are up against a Calyrex-Ice Rider team, Urshifu, Raging Bolt, Rillaboom, and a Landorus Incarnate. This is a pretty standard Calyrex-Ice composition. My main lead into this is definitely Grimmsnarl, Terapagos, Sinistcha. If they have a Moongus on this team, which is often seen in the Rillaboom slot, I always bring Cresselia. However, you could see me trying to decide if Cresselia was still the bring without a Moongus, and I decided yes, having an Earth Power immunity, because Landorus Incarnate just dishes off so much special damage. Having a special wall that can also heal me up, being faster than the Calyrex-Ice Rider, and also having something that is not the Sinistcha weak to the Calyrex-Ice Rider is good. So they do lead Rillaboom, Calyrex. They can fake out my Grimmsnarl. However, I think they would be more inclined to fake out my Terapagos. However, they can always fake out Trick Room. They can fake out Glacial Lance. They do fake out my Terapagos Terra Shell. So fortunately for us, we get the turn. We win the turn. We get a Calm Mind up because our Covert Cloak prevents the flinch from fake out. We fake out their Terapagos, and now they are in range of a Terra Starstorm plus Foul Play, double up into Calyrex. I do just go for a Reflect, and I got greedy here. I was like, the Landorus in the back could be a problem. They do have Raging Bolt and Landorus potentially in the back, but hindsight, definitely should have just gone straight for the damage and reflected next turn, because they're going to be Urshifu and Pelipper in the back. That's just the way it is. I very greedy, didn't even Terrastalize. Just getting up my Reflect. They break my Terra Shell. Got another Calm Mind. I definitely could have Terra Starstorm, Foul Played the Calyrex here, and they go for a Glacial Lance. However, it's not the end of the world. I don't take a lot of damage because my Reflect is up. I can go for a Parting Shot into the Urshifu if I'm scared of the fighting damage coming out from that slot. Also, at this point in the team, I know that 2 Calm Minds with a Terra Flamethrower could knock out most Calyrex spreads. So I didn't go for the Foul Play last turn, but I do just go for a Terra Starstorm this turn. So maybe not the most optimal play that I've since learned. 1 Calm Mind is all it takes for the team to get going. The Terra Starstorm plus Foul Play is a guaranteed KO into whatever the Calyrex does, because if they Terrastalize, they take super effective damage from the Terra Starstorm. I do Parting Shot the Urshifu. I will bring in my Sinistcha. My Reflect is up, so I will be able to survive the Glacial Lance from the Sinistcha. So they won't be doing much damage to my Terapagos if they did decide to go for a close combat, but because of the nature of Terapagos teams, they think I'm going to keep it safer. They have a Focus Sash, and they survive. The Glacial Lance does a lot of damage, but notably the Reflect keeps us alive. That does tell me that they are likely not Clear Amulet, because you need Never Melt Ice to do that type of damage, I do just fake out Terra Starstorm. I don't think they'll let me fake out their Urshifu. If they do, again, they're at -1. But they do just go for a protect on Calyrex, calling that I'm not going to fake out their Urshifu. They do go straight for the close combat, which I find crazy. But this was a fairly neutral play, I will say, because I knew that with the Reflect and the -1, it really wasn't going to do much, and I would take out their Urshifu. I have Parting Shot, I have Sinistcha to keep myself alive. The Calyrex is in range of a Flamethrower if I ever decide to go for it. This is a good opportunity to go for a Parting Shot into the Raging Bolt to keep myself alive from an attack there. We didn't see a booster energy. However, I think because of the threat of my Terapagos, a safer play I have here is to go for the foul play this turn into the Calyrex and just protect my Terapagos. So a little bit of a, you got to respect me. I bait out a little bit of Terastallization. It is that Raging Bolt, Electric Terra. Again, we didn't see a booster energy, so this is likely an Assault Vest or a Life Orb, but I'm assuming Assault Vest at this point. They go for a Thunderclap, so the Protect was a great play. Now, they've revealed that they want to go for Thunderclap, so we've got some mind games. Am I going to Calm Mind on... Am I going to just attack? Am I going to Parting Shot? They've seen my Covert Cloak, so the Fake Out is not going to be effective. So I just go for a Parting Shot into the Raging Bolt and a Terra Starstorm, hoping that I've done enough at this point to either stay alive if they try to attack me. Fortunately, they did not go for a Thunderclap here. I did attack. I can bring in my Sinistcha to try to keep myself alive from the potential attacks coming into the Terapagos. I will be doing super effective damage with my Terra Starstorm. I outspeed both. This is the slowest Rillaboom you've ever seen. So the turn goes perfectly. I get a critical hit. I knock them out with a super effective Terra Starstorm. I do damage to the Rillaboom. They would hammer me. They get a critical hit, but we still survive. Things are looking good. I can even protect my Terapagos and switch out my Sinistcha to get my Fake Out back on the board. So I can Fake Out Terra Starstorm. I can Parting Shot, bring in Sinistcha for more hospitality. Basically, they're in as much danger as you can possibly be at this point. They recognize that the game is over and we win the battle. Let's update our rating. We're 1545 for the end of the episode, with a record of 6-4 for the Global Challenge 1. Thank you for watching. Check out the playlist if you want to see the previous episodes or the future episodes if you're not watching in real time, and I will see you next time.